Hey guys, this is Dan from the AddMeGamers channel, and today I'm going to be doing another StarCraft 2 commentary. And today we're going to have on the bottom right as the blue Terran player, TSL Polt, and on the top left we have of course the famous Zerg player, Stephano. So far the usual starting up match is happening, nothing really much. The Overlord is being moved across the map, most probably to scout out Polt's base. We'll still see exactly how Stephano decides to play in regards with the actual Overlord itself. Let's take a look at the production tab. Both players obviously droning up, and Polt obviously putting down the supply depot, most probably followed by the barracks and the secondary supply depot. Still time will tell in exactly how exactly he plans to actually, or if he'll actually block off this ramp itself, as we do have the first observer coming down, I mean the first scout, that being the drone. And the drone should be able to slip through pretty easily, so I'm not sure if actually Polt will continue with the actual wall off itself, as he does have the Overlord coming in as well, and the actual drone itself. So no, the drone itself is being used to scout out something else. I'm not really quite sure what exactly he's doing. Did Stephano actually decide to move? Yeah, Stephano saw the command center and he knows he's here, so he is going to send the drone instead, and he's going to move back the Overlord as he doesn't want to lose the Overlord. So that's really nice strategic move by Stephano. Here comes the drone. He should be able to scout out all of Polt's base, though. Let's take a look at this. As you can see, he did scout out all of Polt's base. He even knows that the actual barracks is up. But this is pretty interesting, what exactly Polt is doing. Oh my god, this is really nice. Stephano doesn't see the secondary barracks that's coming up on the top left side, so it's going to be pretty interesting to see, as the Overlord was also just out of range, though, so it's pretty interesting that he can't even see it, though. The drone did go up a little bit, but he actually missed the second barracks, so all he's doing is just harassing Polt in building up the barracks. But other than that, he really has no clue that there's secondary barracks coming up. So TS Polt is going to be going in for an early push. This is going to be pretty interesting to see. Stephano obviously has no clue. He is already going up for his second hatchery, and he's continuing his play with the typical two-base expand. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see, as the Overlord is not really scouting anything out. He's just still moving into the same location, probably just seeing if those gases are going to be coming online, to expect to see any of those Hellions most probably coming on. So he wants to know if he should expect any Hellion early on harass. But other than that, he really has no clue with the barracks. The barracks itself will probably most get lifted out and put down, as he already put the checkpoint pretty far off, and as you can see, both the barracks are being moved. Yes, he did drop it, and we're going to see the push itself. Here comes the SCV. Is he going to build something? He's probably going to build a barracks. He's probably going to start building a barracks. No, he's going to use the scout out first. Did he see the secondary base? Yes, he already did see the secondary base. So yep, here comes the bunker right behind the actual ramp itself. So it's really, really nice play from TS Polt. Here comes the drone. The drone will spot this. So obviously, Stephano decides to pull a few more drones off the line. He's going to force, obviously, the retreat of the SCV itself. I'm not sure if the SCV will be able to finish this bunker. Pretty interesting to see. Here come the first Marine. The first Marine should be able to push out a few of those drones. So the drones should retreat. More drones being pulled off the line. I don't really know if Stephano decides to attack the actual Marine with all these drones. Yep, the Marine is going to decide to retreat, and he is going in for this bunker. The bunker itself is going to pretty a lot of damage coming for the bunker. Is he going to lose the bunker? He's going to have to probably cancel the bunker itself. Nope. The bunker is still being built, though. He's going to lose this bunker. He should cancel it. No, he actually lost the bunker. He didn't cancel it. A little bit of miss micro by TS Polt. Two more Marines going to be pushing back the actual drones themselves for Stephano. Here comes the other SCV, the one that was actually building the initial bunker. He's going to do it again. Yes, he's going to rebuild the bunker again. Here come the two Marines. They should be able to push off these Zerglings. Stephano's still not really sure in how to actually deal with this. He is droning up, obviously, on the production tab. He has 4 more Zerglings, and this is a pretty interesting play. Obviously, Polt puts the Marines in a nice little tucked away corner in the bottom right, so he should be easily able to take out these Zerglings, as he does have only one single approach into the actual Marines themselves. So Stephano can't get us around, which he really needs with those Zerglings. If he can't get us around with the Marines from the Zerglings, then there's really no point. You are going to lose. And most of the Terran players do decide to do this. They always try to find some nook and cranny that they can squeeze into, where you only have one entry. This Queen is going to prove a little vital, as the range for the Queen is pretty high. I'm not sure if Stephano is going to utilize this to his advantage, as he's going to realize that the Marines can't really reach the Queen itself, though. So here comes the Queen. Here comes the push by Stephano. Obviously, as I said, he is Polt is sort of squashed into the corner, so he is going to take out those Zerglings pretty decently though. As you can see, most of the Zerglings are going to drop. It's really, time will tell if he's going to survive this. Yes, one of the Marines does survive. He's going to get dropped off by the rest of the Zerglings. Bunker's being attacked, obviously should be taken out by the rest of the Zerglings. And the Queen's going to retreat to his obviously wonderful hatchery and continue placing those drones there. The Marines obviously retreating, the Zerglings chasing down the rest of the Marines. Nothing really fancy happening so far. More Zerglings, of course, coming in. 10 more Zerglings, to be exact, coming online for Polt. Polt, otherwise, he is building another command center, and he's building 2 more barracks, so he's really dedicated to this push. He has, in total, he's going to have 4-rack push and more Marines streaming across the map. So, pretty interesting to see that TS Polt did not actually resign from this tactic that he actually used. He's going to go up to the... Is he going to go up to the Zolnaga Tower? No. He's actually forced to retreat because of the amount of Zerglings that, especially on the open ground, they do have a really good advantage. Nice kiting from Polt. He did manage to take a few. He's going to obviously try to tuck away again to the corner, where there's very little space for those Zerglings to be able to attack Polt. But the last Marine drops. Here comes the counterattack from Stephano itself. And so far, let's take a look at the units lost. TS Polt did manage to lose more units, of course, in regards to, as all the Marines that he did send were died out. So it's 31 to 16. And workers, really nearly the same, just 1 worker extra. He did finally raise the supply depot, so this should prevent the actual charge in from Stephano. Really nice counterattack from Stephano itself. The Marines obviously being thrown out, the SCV coming in to repair the supply depot itself. He probably should pull off the line another SCV to repair the other supply depot. I'm not sure what exactly he's trying to do. He is continuing to build. This actual supply depot will drop, and he might actually be able to enter the actual base itself. I'm not quite sure why TS Polt is not going to pull off a secondary SCV. This was actually going to drop. Unbelievable. Too late. I do believe it's going to drop. It drops. Zerglings are going to charge into the base, and obviously SCV is retreating, but enough Marines should be able to push this. Only 2 more Zerglings left, so they should pretty much drop, though. But really, that scouting he didn't want to happen. That scouting from Stephano's side. Stephano knows that he already has 4 racks already ready, so he knows a push is coming, and Stephano, in accordance to that, is going to have to adjust, though. But really interesting to see Stephano already placing down the first spine crawler. Of course, he does know that something's coming up, so he is trying to keep it play slightly defensively as possible, though. So secondary orbital coming online for TS Polt already. It has the orbital commands, so he can already continue placing those mules down that really increase the amount of crystal production substantially, especially for the actual Terran side. That's really one great advantage the Terrans have. Stephano, otherwise, nothing much. He is continuing the production of the overloads to increase the supply, and we already have those Zerglings and a few extractors coming online, and the first spine crawler that should be complete sometime around now. Here it comes. It should pop up anytime soon. Is he actually going to keep it here and move it off? It's really be interesting to see exactly what's going to happen. Here comes another push from TS Polt. TS Polt really persisting on being very aggressive in regards to this. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Stephano is going to counteract this with another push. He jumped out the Zolnaga Tower, so we should see those Zerglings coming. Is he going to go down? No, actually, he's going to get to two free kills, actually. These Marines should be able to drop the Zerglings pretty quickly. I don't even believe it. Yes, they got 1 hit, but otherwise they dropped pretty quickly. And here we have the metabolic boost, so finally something coming online for Stephano, some research for the metabolic boost. I can't even speak now. The metabolic boost is going to prove to be vital. And the 24 Zerglings, really Zergling heavy from Stephano. I'm not really going into anything else. We do have the combat shield +1 for those Marines, and we have the factory. So is TS Polt going actually for those double medevacs, though? Will we see it directly after this factory, a switch to the actual starport itself with the reactor and a hot swap take place? It'll be interesting to see. Already, the second base is pretty saturated, though, especially with those 2 mules. It does prove to increase the production pretty rampantly. Here we have the 2 supply depots and that bunker to make this wall off pretty complete. All he needs is maybe a barracks down here, and that should pretty well do it, you know, in terms of this. And we have the supply depot blocking off this, so barracks down here should pretty well block off this. And since Stephano knows that he has the Zolnaga Tower, it's pretty sneaky that he actually moves around. Obviously we have the Veilings being warped in being morphed in, not warped in, being morphed in. So pretty interesting that finally the Balings are going to be coming into play, which will be pretty vital in regards to Stephano. He should be able to take out these marine units really easily as long as the Balings come in. Look at the amount of Zerglings though. This should be easily mopped up. Easily mopped up. Beautiful surround. All these Marines are going to drop pretty quickly. He does retreat though. We'll look at the amount of Marines though. Balings still hiding. So he's probably going to use these Balings. A few Balings warped in, 2 Balings, so this should be pretty useful. If you can get at least one of those Balings in, is he going to target fire them? Polt, yes, Polt does decide to target fire those Balings, but still the amount of Zerglings are going to pretty much decimate Polt's Marine force, though. That beautiful surround, unfortunately, is not on Polt's advantage. These Marines are going to drop like flies, and a few more left. More Zerglings coming in, of course, to continue that surround. I don't know why Polt didn't just retreat a little back into the corner here. It should have proved pretty vital. Here comes the push with the Balings. Is he going to actually charge in? He should be able to break through, though. He should be able to break through. Here comes the push from Stephano. Look at all those Zerglings pouring through. We have the stim research coming online, of course. 13 more Balings coming on. And this should pretty much be it for Stephano. Stephano should be easily able to break through this, and he knows that from the other side is most probably easier to go in, but I do believe he could be able to even break through directly through the bunker itself. Here come a few Zerglings, of course, to hamper TS Polt's production line. A few Marines being pulled up by TS Polt to sustain the amount of damage coming for the production line for the secondary base, but the Zerglings should be able to surround. He pulls off, of course, all the SCVs. Here comes the push by the Balings. Baling busts the actual bunker itself, and they continue to move forward. I don't know why he didn't raise the supply depot. Again, a little bit of miss micro by TS Polt. Here come the Balings. They are moving forward. They are being pushed towards the actual SCVs themselves. Really nice explosions on all the SCVs. Look at all that SCV loss. Marines still picking off the Zerglings. Balings are still really what Stephano is concentrating on to get as many of those SCVs down. Polt really not concentrating on the SCVs and too busy dealing with these few Zerglings. Well, again, bit of miss micro with Polt. He should have maintained to look at the amount of Zerglings he had and look at the amount of units lost. TS Polt at 126 workers killed, 19 workers to 2. Seriously, his economy, TS Polt's economy, really hampered substantially. I don't know why he didn't focus on dealing with those actual SCVs then in regards to dealing with those 2-3 Zerglings left. But here come another charge of a bunch of Zerglings from Stephano. He should be able to mop up the rest of these with the actual Marines themselves, but we should see a few more workers killed. 22 now. The rest of the Zerglings should drop pretty quick, and he should be able to move forward and put the supply depot up. As the longer he keeps the supply depot down, of course, more of those Zerglings are streaming in. I don't know why he didn't raise the supply depot. He just let another wave actually enter into TS Polt's base, so it's pretty surprising and why he actually decided to do it that way. We have, of course, the third hatchery coming online, and we do have some Zerglings, more drones. We have the creep tumor continuing to spread. We do have the evolution chamber, so we should finally see some other units in terms of Stephano. So more Balings coming on, warping in, morphing in, warping in. I don't even know what the hell it's supposed to be. We'll call it morphing in. And finally, the first Marauder, a few Marauders online. We do have the concussive shell research complete and that stim research. So this push by TS Polt is going to be something that Stephano isn't really prepared for, because as far as he's concerned, so far he didn't have to deal with stim or Marauders. He was just flat out dealing with Marines only. So this is going to be something really Stephano is not really prepared for at all. This push should be a pretty aggressive push, and it should be able to take down a substantial amount. Here comes the scan, taking out those tumors, so the Crete will start to recede, and we do have the attack level 1 and Car Preserve ground level 1 coming on for Stephano. No actual research still coming in for TS Polt. Stim coming online. He should be able to bust. Is he going to target fire these Balings? No, the Balings should be able to bust. No, Stephano decides to save those Balings and retreats those Balings. He doesn't want to use the Balings in this actual battle itself, as he knows that the Marauders do have a good habit of being able to absorb the majority of these Balings, so he doesn't want to use them. Again, another stim coming on for Polt himself. He is moving in with a small little bio ball. Here come the Zerglings and those Balings. He's going to use the Balings now. He should be able to use those Balings now. He doesn't want to bust them on the actual Marauders. He knows it's waste. He's going in for the actual Marines. Marines drop pretty quickly. The rest of the Marauders will be taken out by the Zerglings, and that's it for Stephano. Really nice micro. He is really keeping these Balings in touch with himself. He doesn't want to get them used up for no reason whatsoever. And we do have that siege tank research coming online, so we should see a switch to those tanks pretty soon, as the first tank is just about to pop up. We still have those 4 barracks. I presume he should maybe pop one more rack out. I don't know why he's still going on those 4 racks, but again, he just might want to waste those resources in getting those tanks up, as he needs those siege tanks to be able to push anywhere near to get Stephano to kneel in terms of taking ground and winning. So, so far so good. Level 1 and level 2 for Stephano nearly complete. More Zerglings, 18 more Zerglings to be exact. Stephano really going heavy on Zergling and Balings, but once those tanks come out, really Stephano's going to have to rechange his tactic, as it's going to be pretty difficult to keep TS Polt's Marine Force at bay. Now look at the amount of Marines and those medevacs. A really nice play. We did, of course, have that hot swap from the actual factory itself. Zerglings still running around trying to figure out, here comes the scan, more tubers are going to be dropped. Stephano obviously keeping a close eye on those Balings. He doesn't want to use them recklessly. He is going for those Marines with those Balings, and those Marines are of course retreating. He knows that it's coming. He's trying to target fire those Balings. Really nice spread from TS Polt, forcing Stephano to retreat with those Balings, and the rest of the Marauders are going to drop by those Zerglings. Again, a very nice play from Stephano. Really nice micro from both players, as both players are really playing it to the last strategic advantage that they can possibly have in terms of attacking each other and moving their units around the battlefield as effectively as possible. Second tank should be coming online. I mean, siege tank should be coming on. Here we have the first siege tank, and this overall should change the way this game is played. Here comes the siege fire. The siege tank fire. Stephano sees it. He decides to retreat. He's not gonna pick those losses. He doesn't want to get those losses. But look at the amount of Zerglings in play. Seriously, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Let's take a look at the worker supply. Army supply 46 to 34. So far that's pretty good. Obviously, TS Polt loads up all the Marines into the medevacs. He doesn't want to lose them. We have attack and ground level 2 coming in for Stephano, and still nothing from TS Polt. So I'm not quite sure why TS Polt is not really going in. No engineering bay, nothing. He is really just pushing on this. He just wants to get it up. 2 more medevacs. The amount of medevacs should make this bio ball a little more effective, especially in terms of being able to stim and being able to last much longer. Finally, the first weapons level 1 coming on online for TS Polt. Very nice placements from those overlords, of course. As you can see, the overlords are placed out really on a line that should be able to see any drops coming in from TS Polt. So really nice play from Stephano. Very smart in terms of placing these overlords to be able to see any drop coming in from TS Polt. Here comes the push finally with those tanks. So I do believe he's going to maybe siege up at the bottom. Yes, this is a very famous tactic, and sieging your tanks up at the bottom, giving you the high ground. You buy those medevacs and Marines being dropped really up. This is going to prove to be pretty efficient for TS Polt. Stephano is in for a big surprise. As he decides to move forward, he's going to have that cover fire from those siege tanks. All TS Polt has to do is stay behind the siege line. Let's take a look at the siege line. Here's the siege line. So this tank should be able to drop off. I don't know why he didn't move the other siege tank a little closer. Here comes another push. Stephano knows he needs to take out those siege tanks. Those Balings bust and take out really nearly all those Marines. These tanks are most probably going to take a pretty hefty amount of damage as those Balings decide to burst on those tanks themselves. A few more Marines survived as he loaded them onto the medevacs. He unloads them. This Queen is going to drop. The Queen dropped. Here come more drops from TS Polt. He's actually moving them forward. Weapons level 1 and armor level 1, or at least weapons level 1, is really required from TS Polt. Even a vehicle armor or vehicle weapons level 1 would be pretty useful in this sense. The Balings are still moving forward. This base is most probably going to drop itself. More Zerglings hatched, and we do have the level 2 nearly complete. The more units, more Zerglings shooting down across, the tank drops. The secondary tank is most probably going to drop. The amount of Marines here should be able to take care of this, though. The tank nearly on the verge of dying, though. The hatchery is still just about alive, moving down to the siege tank line. And Stephano knows, so he decides to retreat. He doesn't want to get close to that. And is he going to target fire those Balings? He really needs to target fire those Balings, because if they bust, that's the end of Polt's actual line itself. He decides to load him up just to be sure. Siege tank does provide a little bit of cover fire. He unloads him, obviously gets him healed up and ready for another stim. And we'll move him in to take out finally this hatchery on his 4th wave of moving in those Marine units. So this hatchery is going to drop, and I do believe he's going to continue to push forward. Of course, we do have more Balings coming in and 24 more Zerglings coming in. Weapons level 1 finally complete. That's exactly what TS Polt requires, and he is going to be moving forward. He might be able to actually take out these evolution chambers. I'm not sure if that's what he's focused on. A few Marines from the bottom as well to sustain any push coming in from Stephano towards these tanks, as this tank is really what's holding TS Polt's forward attack pretty alive in this case. Look at the amount of Zerglings and Balings. They should easily bust through the amount of Marines, especially the Balings. One Baling should bust on those Marines, and it should be able to take them out. Here they come. Finally, Stephano decides to use these Marines to take out those. Use the Balings to take out the Marines and the tanks themselves. The rest of the siege tanks are practically dead. He was only working on one. TS Polt again is going to lose that by the Balings. Really nice micro by Stephano, as he's using those Balings exactly where he needs them to be. We're not using them really sporadically and ineffectively. Very nice micro from Stephano. He's still holding on, he's not giving up, he's really giving it all what he can. Again, a few more paintings coming in. They're going to drop pretty quickly, and even though they are resupplied, the weapons level 1 is complete, so TS Polt is really getting an upper hand finally, even though Stephano has to do too, but the amount of units that TS Polt is being able to produce and the continuous line streaming across the map is really what's holding TS Polt to an advantage here. One of the evolution chambers obviously dropped. This should be pretty quickly mopped up in terms of the bailings. One bailing should be able to bust. This is going to load him on. He managed to just save one Terran unit themselves. One Terran unit, and we do have the siege tank finally back online. Do we have more siege tanks coming online? No, we do have the 4th hatchery again, and Stephano's still going for those zerglings and bailings. We do have the Terran armor level 1 as well, so that should increase the lifespan of those marines just a little bit longer. I don't know why he doesn't build a 5th rack and produce more of those marauders, as he does need more of those marauders to keep those bailings at bay. But then again, you know, this is a pretty intense fight so far. He is again moving up with these 3 Terrans, 3 marine units. A few zerglings are going to drop. The rest of these, either he's going to load the last one up or he's not going to load the last one up. Is he going to load it? No, he lost it. Did he manage to load it up? No, he didn't. He lost all those marine units, and here comes, I do believe, a retaliation from Stephano himself. He should be able to push back. Look at the amount of medevacs. Where are those marines? Here comes another drop. 2 tanks now by TS Polt from the low ground, giving cover to the high ground. And this should be pretty decent drop from TS Polt. He should be able to push back Stephano pretty nicely, especially with these 3 medevacs. Queen's gonna drop pretty quickly. Zerglings completely bypass everything else. They're moving forward. They actually decide to retreat. I don't know why. Here comes the actual main tank force. Stephano retreating to the tank fire. Polt retreating to the tank fire. Stephano knew that, so that's why he retreated with Zerglings. Again, he is pushing forward. This is a sort of tug of war. Stephano knows he can't move too close. He has that siege line defense here, so he can't really move too close. He needs to force TS Polt further out of the siege line, and TS Polt knows that, of course. That's why he's not moving anywhere forward. It would be nice if he actually lifted one of these tanks and moved them forward into his main base. He should move back just a little bit longer. Here comes the siege fire. He should be able to retreat. No, Stephano decides to push all out. He should be able to drop all these tanks, I do believe. Those bailings are going to pretty much take care of these tanks. Really nice. Look at all those marines lost. 2nd tank lost. And so far, it's still looking towards TS Polt's side, even though Stephano is holding out. But as the longer the time goes, we do have the armor level 1, and in terms of upgrades, even though Stephano is at an advantage, but the tanks themselves are providing really something to be feared, as the tanks are really providing great backup in terms of TS Polt's marines. I don't really know why he doesn't drop one of those tanks up. He is still pushing out. These should pretty much mop up the marines themselves. Of course, TS Polt knows that. He is again retreating. Tank fire forces Stephano to rethink his actual push themselves. These marines are going to be healed up and move forward. He really needs to do something about this main base. TS Polt really needs to put his hand down, or foot down, not hand down, foot down, and figure out what exactly he wants to do. Anyways, the primary base nearly mined out by Stephano, so really not such a big loss though. And these marines finally where Stephano wants him, away from the actual tanks. Of course, TS Polt just loads him up to the medevac and decides to move back, even though the Queen is trying to target fire one of the medevacs, or attack one of the medevacs. Really pointless. Here comes the siege fire. It's going to force the Queen back another. Finally, the first tank up on the main platform of Stephano's base. We have a few of those marines as well. I do believe Stephano is going to pretty aggressively counter this. We do have the level 2 and level 2 armor and weapon coming online. We do have the vehicles, finally level 1 coming online. We do have 2 more tanks. Did he produce a secondary factory? I do believe he did. There's the first factory. Where's the second factory? There's the second factory. So we do have a production line of 2 tanks now. I do believe this game is most probably going to go on for TS Polt, as Stephano's counter really so far is pretty weak. These tanks are going to drop. Really no marine backup are going to cause these tanks to pretty much drop like flies. Here comes the marine, a little bit too late. He lost 4 tanks. He should have actually got them backed up by those marines before moving them in. He had really no tanks backed up. This tank is going to drop as well. These Zerglings should be able to take care of this tank pretty quickly. Polt should load up the rest of the marines to cut his losses though. It's pretty interesting to see in terms of units killed. 622 on Polt's side. But Polt really still in the lead in some sense or another. More bailings being morphed in. And here comes a sort of a big bio-ball push from actual TS Polt. He really needs those tanks though. Without those tanks, really Polt doesn't really stand much of a chance, because the amount of Zerglings that Stephano is churning out is pretty hefty. And especially those bailings, those really calculated bailing busts by Stephano are really something to be admired about. So he did lose, you know, the tank itself is finally here. And we do have that tank line a little back, though he really needs to move his forces just a little bit back. He's actually decided to go for a secondary base. He is moving in for the secondary base. He decides to retreat just a bit. Stephano's still throwing all the Zerglings he has to that. TS Polt decides to retreat, to reheal his units, and he'll probably be moving out. Look at the amount of medevacs. I do believe that this force itself is pretty hefty, especially once he gets that 2-2 up. It's going to be really an all-out win for TS Polt, in my opinion. Here comes the secondary evolution chamber. It should drop pretty quickly. Stephano decides to abandon his primary base. I do not see he is really going up for it. The Zerglings do manage to take out these tanks again by TS Polt, as TS Polt is not really backing up those tanks for any marine fire, so it's making it pretty easy to take those tanks out. Again, more Zerglings being warped in, but TS Polt just decides to load him up into the back and say, you know what, screw this, I'm just moving back to my another tank line that I've created, again without marine backup. I don't know why TS Polt is doing this. He is really losing those tanks ridiculously for just really no reason whatsoever. He could have just put in a few more marines there to take care of that. Anyways, Stephano is again trying to figure out exactly how to deal with this. He is moving in those Zerglings, but unfortunately here come those marines. The marines should be able to take out the majority of the Zerglings. He might actually hold this line. I'm not sure if the tank, yes, the tank will survive. As you can see, just those 4 or 5 marines did manage to save the tank itself. So again, we do have more tanks and more marines streaming across the line, and Polt obviously moving in with his third orbital command, and we do have an actual flank attack coming in from Stephano for this third orbital command, but the Zolnaga tower should be able to see this. I don't know if Polt can see it itself. Did he actually manage to see it? Is he going to move anybody from the line? Nope. He's not really paying attention in this sense. He is actually just focused on taking out the evolution chamber and the rest of Polt's base, and I mean Stephano's base, and now those marines are being forced to move up to deal with this sort of harass, and a few more medevacs get pulled off the main line, and here is the push, being able to really mop up the actual primary base of Stephano. I don't know why he doesn't take out the lair itself, though. I don't know why he even sieged up the tank. The tank is going to drop pretty quickly before it does anything, even though there is some covered fire from the tanks previously, but still not enough marines to keep those tanks alive. These tanks are going to drop, finally being backed up by those marines. It should force Stephano to move back with the Zerglings, as you can see. Secondary hatchery, secondary base for Stephano is going to drop as well. There it pops, so 2 hatcheries down for TS Polt's side, and still nothing on Stephano. Stephano really not countering this with any way. He is rebuilding. You can see his base completely somewhere else. He is rebuilding his base, I do believe. Where is it? Here. He's rebuilding his primary base here. As you can see, you have another push. TS Polt decides to move up directly, and he is actually pushing on his, you can say, Stephano's secondary primary base that he decided to build out of it, and the evolution chamber is going to drop, and the hatchery itself. I don't know why Stephano doesn't call this a game. This is really pointless. The secondary base is going to drop for Stephano itself, and there really is nothing coming in. Another stim should be able to mop up this pretty quickly. Hatchery drops. Is Stephano going to call this a game? This is really pointless. All those bailings are being target fired, even though he did manage to get a few marines. Very nice actual bailing bust from Stephano, but still not really looking up towards Stephano's side himself. So far, he is really running on no base, and he really has units scarcely and construction scarcely placed. The marine, I mean, the tank, siege tank line is being moved forward. Is it being moved forward? Yes, it is being moved forward. This is really ridiculous. So we don't have a base here. This already second base mopped up. Third base dropped. He's going for the primary base. Primary base is going to drop. And Stephano is just working off this one base, even though the second hatchery is coming online. But the economical advantage, especially with dealing with this, is too hefty, and Stephano decides to call it a game, not even giving it a GG. And I don't blame him. He's pretty pissed off. But otherwise, this game is pretty nice. And as always, happy gaming, and see you again in my next commentary. Bye.